Hey everyone, and welcome back to Amplify Agile. I'm Kiara Zapanta, and in today's episode, we're going to delve into the topic of launching and implementing the Scaled Agile framework in partnership with finance. And joining me today is Ken France, VP Enterprise Agility Center of Excellence of Cprime and SAFE Fellow, who will share his insights on why a robust partnership with finance teams is essential for successful SAFE implementation. So Ken, please give us a quick introduction of yourself and background.
Great. Thanks for having me today. So I started my career on the technical side. So I was a developer and then became a development manager and then into consulting. So really most of my career has been either doing or helping large organizations implement large scale systems and helping to do that in a in a high quality, high productive way. I moved into the consulting space in my career and eventually became an entrepreneur and started my own company and was the co-founder CEO of that. That company was then acquired by Cprime. And within the last few years after kind of integrating that company, I now run our Agility Center of Excellence here at Cprime. And I also operate as an executive coach within a lot of clients, really helping them in this space, helping them understand how to, connect financials into their agile transformations.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, and we're happy to have you here and discuss SAFE implementation. So diving into the topic of today, what business challenges do organizations encounter when they don't bring in finance teams when scaling Agile? And what percentage of organizations have adopted SAFE without a finance partnership?
Let me start with that last question first, because I find it surprising that organizations don't start by engaging finance early on. A lot of times they wait until it becomes a problem or becomes inhibiting their transformation. And so it's I'd say more than half don't engage in finance right away. And so that's the first thing, and we'll talk about that more, about how to engage them early. If they don't engage them, the problem is it's going to create unnecessary tension. It's going to add risks and create blind spots because there's just not going to be alignment. At the end of the day, the finance team is used to working in a very traditional kind of approach. They don't understand agility yet. They don't understand how things need to evolve and change. So if there's not a partnership there, the finance function will start to really work against your transformation and throw up roadblocks unnecessarily. And so those are some of the challenges I see if there's not that tight partnership that organizations need to build over time.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it seems like there's just a lack of alignment between both parties if you don't bring them both together at the start. So I know you touched on how if finance doesn't understand how agility works, it can cause some tension. But on the flip side, what is the importance of maintaining financial transparency throughout the agile journey?
At the end of the day, businesses run on dollars. Agile folks, they like to estimate in relative points and plan work that way. But at the end of the day, it's the dollars and the profits and the value that really drive a business. And so I think the importance is you need to make sure that you have connectivity between the money you're spending and the value that's being delivered. You need to be able to understand that so you can make the right decisions. So many times in organizations, money is allocated to a project or within a budget, and it's almost blindly spent. That, hey, we allocated this money, we're going to spend this money on this initiative. But there's not the lens to looking at the value the initiative is bringing us as to whether we should continue making that investment or we should make a pivot. And so without having that transparency to the financials aligned to the outcomes you're getting, that's where the big disconnects come in. There's also a lot of compliance concerns that finance has to make sure that they have an understanding of where money is being spent and how they're remaining compliant with all the regulations they have. So again, having that connectivity and that visibility is really important.
Awesome. And now thinking of the actual SAFE framework, what would you say are the areas of this framework that can benefit the most from partnering with finance teams?
First and foremost, you think about lean portfolio management. So at the portfolio level, this is where you're setting your strategic themes, your big objectives. This is where you're looking at your lean business cases for the initiatives you're going to do. This is where you're looking at your value streams and how value flows throughout the organization and what funding is going to be allocated. So sort of the preeminent place in SAFE where finance and the transformation have to come together is at that portfolio level, because that's really where you're really making some strategic decisions, and then seeing, are those strategic decisions paying off for you, and looking at that. So that's a key part. Yeah, another key part of SAFE that tends to come into play is capitalization. The way organizations have rules on what they capitalize and what they expense, it's very well defined in a waterfall type environment, but there's different ways to do it in an agile environment. So SAFE has guidance in there about different options that organizations can do to take on a capitalization strategy in an agile world. So those are a lot of the areas in SAFE where finance and the transformation really come together.
Okay, awesome. So now what value and impact is received at the team, program, portfolio, and finance level through this partnership when adopting SAFE?
I'm going to start at the top first, because I feel like, again, that portfolio level is where things really get set out from the beginning. So that's where budgets will be allocated, how much money we're going to spend, what are those strategic investments we're going to make. And then what happens is that portfolio level will set guardrails that, as the work is happening, those guardrails help decision-making at the lower levels. And so that value at the portfolio level of setting direction, the strategy, setting guardrails to drive execution is critical. When you move down to the program and team levels, their job is, at the end of the day, to deliver the work to meet those strategies. But what they have to do now is they have to make sure they're executing in a way that aligns to those guardrails, that aligns to the strategy and objectives that were set. And the way that they need to do that is they need to have clear visibility and understanding of where that money is getting spent. A lot of times, some of those guardrails say you should be investing a certain amount of your budget on new development, a certain amount on fixing, bugs from the prior releases, a certain amount on innovation. And so they have to have visibility and understanding of where their money is being spent, so that can be input to their planning process and their execution of the work to make sure they're aligning to the portfolio. The finance organization, they then, across all those levels, they get clear visibility to what work is being done, how that work aligns to those strategic objectives, and how much it's costing to do those things. Are we actually getting the value for the cost that we anticipated? So finance kind of being baked in across all those levels really helps make sure that strategy and execution are connected and well aligned to the financials.
Awesome. So it seems like there's great impact and value across the board for all levels. So in your experience, what is the best way for an organization to start fostering this collaboration, and how would you recommend an organization initially rolls out this partnership?
So first and foremost, engage finance from the start. Don't wait till it becomes an impediment. Don't wait till it becomes a problem. Many times these initiatives start with upfront training of the leadership team to make sure there's an alignment on what we're getting into from a transformation perspective. Bring finance into those. The dialogue they're going to have with the other leaders will be critical to kind of set the stage right, that we're going to head down this path together and form that partnership. The other thing that I always recommend is, when you look at SAFE, one of the things that SAFE talks about that's very impactful from a finance perspective is how funding works. Traditional funding is you're funding a project or a program and then kind of staffing that with people. Lean Agile budgeting says you form, long-standing teams around value streams, and you fund those people long-term. That's a big change for the finance function to go through. So I recommend strategies to incrementally move to that mindset. You can move towards long-standing teams as a first step, not necessarily funding them, and then over time, find ways to change your funding model to align to that. So a big piece of advice is, don't push finance to change everything overnight. Those are very foundational practices and processes they have in place, and they need to evolve incrementally. And there are ways to do that incrementally without having a big bang up front.
Awesome. And lastly, where do you think a software solution or tool like Apptio Targetprocess can help in enabling and implementing the partnership between finance and agile transformations?
So I talked a lot about connecting that strategy to execution. That's very much easier said than done. So you need a tool like Targetprocess to be able to visualize and align on those objectives. Then as those objectives turn into work that start to spread across the organization, you can clearly see that connectivity. And then that being tied into the financials, all of that is just connected, rolled up, really gives all the different stakeholders the visibility they need to manage that. Especially if you bring in some of the other Apptio products like Apptio One, like Cloudability, that's going to really connect the true financial engine that's driving the company to where the work's tracked and how we're managing our cloud spend as more and more people move to the cloud. So to me, that the connectivity across the whole Apptio tool suite really gives sort of the one pane of glass visibility that finance needs, that the stakeholders driving the work needs, that the folks at the team and the program need to make sure they stay within the guardrails. So it really just helps provide the visibility and connectivity across the board.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Amplify Agile. A huge thank you to Ken for sharing his valuable insights with us. If you're interested in learning more about this topic and how to foster this partnership using Targetprocess, be sure to register for our upcoming Lunch and Learn in partnership with Cprime on May 17 during Safe Summit Prague. Ken, it was great having you on the show, and we can't wait to have you back in the future. Please feel free to leave any questions in the comment section and stay tuned for our next topic.